Yeah, man, I'll tell you what, that dang old internet, man, you just go on there and point and click, get in there and talk about www. Call me, you got that.
For some reason or another, you sound a little taller on radio.
Well, for my money, he's got all the facial characteristics of a criminal.
Now, here's your host, that gravy sopping, crappie flopping, stump jumping, Bible thumping, gun toting, mater growing son of a gun, the Backwoods Baptist himself, Pastor Harold Smith.
Welcome to the Backwoods Baptist podcast. It is so good to be back with you. It's been a couple of busy weeks. I was at church camp last week, and I had a kidney stone. I may still have a kidney stone. I'm not sure I ever got rid of it, but it left me alone for a while. And I've never had a kidney stone, but I've always heard they're painful. And I can confirm the reports. They are painful. Had a great church camp with Bloomer Baptist. I was privileged to preach each morning at the camp. You may go to a Backwoods Baptist church if at your church camp the boys break out the steer roping dummies and sit out and head and heel on a couple of steer roping dummies just to pass the time at free time at church camp. I've got some exciting news, something I've been stirred up about probably for the last 2 months. I want to tell you a story. I want to talk to you. You probably read the title. It's the Backwoods Baptist American Tour, August 2025. What in the world is that? Like most of the ministry God seems to put me in, it's not normal. I can't say, I'm planting a church. I'm ministering to orphans. I'm in Bible translation. The ministries God gives me always seem to be some, nobody's ever done that before. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's the lot that I've been appointed, and so I'm going to embrace it. About 2 months ago, I couldn't sleep, and that's not uncommon for me. Sometimes I have trouble winding down in the evening. I can't get my mind to stop. My mind will just run and run and run and run, and sometimes it won't ever stop. And so a lot of times what I do in the evenings is I watch documentaries, or maybe documentaries about missionaries. I watch a lot of Christian-produced material. I'll watch the life of Hudson Taylor. I'll watch the movie Sheffy. Now, I've seen all those a couple times, but I'm always on the lookout for some new documentary, some new church history thing. I'll listen to lectures about church history because I'm just weird like that, and I love history, and I have a bookstore, but primarily what I read is biographies, so I'm interested in some kind of biographical. I can't watch TV, all right? I can't watch drama. I can't watch sitcoms anymore. I can't watch movies. They're fake. I want to watch something that's real. I at least want to watch something that's based on a real story. So that leads me to usually watching some kind of documentary or biographical thing. And so a lot of times I'll watch interviews. Long story short, I'd seen most of the material that I was recommending. And I looked up podcast, and I saw a podcast I think it's called the Drifting Cowboy Podcast by a fella named Dylan Weldon. I may not have his name exactly right, but he was interviewing a country music singer that I only have heard his name. I've seen him. I've not personally seen him, but I was watching a barbecue documentary, and this guy was singing in the background. He was the entertainment at the barbecue festival, and he had a great big crowd down in Texas, and they said, "This is Dale Watson." And I'm like, who in the world's Dale Watson? But the way they were cheering, it was like, it was George Strait, and I didn't know anything about it. So when I saw Dale Watson, I'm like, I don't know a Dale Watson song. I don't know. I know he's a country artist. That's about it. So I watched the interview, and I watched them talking about him, and it was so bizarre that I'm sitting here watching at like 12:30 or 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm sitting here watching a hour-long interview with a honky-tonk singer that had never really had like a hit song or a hit album or anything like that. And I'm fascinated by it. And then here's what he says. He's a legend in Texas. All right. Everybody in Texas knows who Del Watson is. He tours 300, I think it's like 300 shows a year is what he does. And he lives in Texas. Most of his tour dates are in Texas, but he goes all across the country. He even does a European tour just about every year. And I'm like, I've never heard of this guy. I mean, I've heard of him. I don't know anything about him. He doesn't have a hit song. He never had a breakout album. But for like, I don't know. I mean, he was talking about singing back in the 80s and early 80s. He's talking about Willie Nelson and different guys. And I'm thinking, he's been touring that long and I don't really know who he is. And he goes to Europe. And then he was talking about these the awards that he's participating. He's like his own country artist, and he says, "I'm too country for country," you know. And I was like, "Yeah, I can relate to that." I mean, I probably like this guy's music if I ever sat down and listened to it. I never have heard his music, and anyways, it got me thinking. On his award program that he was putting on, he said, "If you don't tour, you don't qualify for an award." He said, there are great bands all across Texas, great bands all across the country. He said, but those bands seldom ever leave their home range. They don't go on the road. He said, you can go to Austin and you can go to a club and you can hear a great band play every night. And he goes, and those bands don't ever want to leave Austin. They're content playing their clubs and they produce good music and the world doesn't know them. He said, if you want to win an award, you've got to take your show on the road. And I was like, okay, that's pretty neat. And then it hit me. About 1:00 in the morning, it hit me. I was like, I've said the same thing about preachers. The greatest preachers in the world never leave their hometown. They're not preaching on big conferences. They're out in the middle of nowhere. There's some wayside church in a town that Google probably couldn't even locate on Google Maps. You know, if you key in the church's address, it'll probably take you to the chicken house across the road because the church doesn't exist. But if you ever got in there and you heard that pastor preach, you would be like, my, these people have no idea how the Lord has blessed them with a man that can rightly, handle the word of God. But if you don't ever get out of your town, if you don't ever leave your church, world doesn't know who you are. Man, that got my wheels turning. I don't want to be famous. I don't want the world to know who I am. Matter of fact, I had a guy tell me one time, he said, I want to make you a household name. I said, I don't want to be a household name. I said, I want to just stay here and pastor the church the Lord called me to. So I say all that to say I have a podcast where a lot of times I interview guys here in Western Arkansas, Eastern Oklahoma, guys that come to our pastors' lunches and they'll come and sit down with me. And then I'll get emails from people I've never met. States like Ohio, Kentucky, Alabama, Texas, Missouri, Illinois, Michigan. Some preacher, some church member, just some Christian found the podcast and he said, brother, I don't have the kind of Christian fellowship you have. I would love to know a Ronnie Qualls or a Michael Sanchez or a Wes Brown. I would love to be able to sit down and talk to a Russell Threet. And they're like, we just don't have those kind of guys around here. You're so fortunate to be there. And I'm like, really? These kind of men are all over the country. We just don't know where they are. Unless you live in that local area and you know those local preachers, you don't know these guys. And man, that just kept weighing on me. And it was like every month I would upload another unscripted podcast, just me and a preacher sitting down talking. And some fella that I never met would take the time to figure out what my email address was, shoot me an email and say, hey, look, I really appreciated, what you guys were talking about. That was really encouraging when you and Jesse Anderson were talking about blah, 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 blah. That helped me. And I was like, Lord, there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way And my podcast is not like a big platform. I mean, seriously, they measure my views in the hundreds, not thousands. I would say, looking at I'm no expert on internet demographics or statistics, but most of my podcasts fall somewhere between 300 and 500 downloads. Some of them go way over that, but between YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, all those platforms, I'm usually in the hundreds, not thousands. But the Lord's able to take the podcast that I put together and send it out. I'm a lot like Dale Watson. I'm well known. People call me the Pope of Arkansas, as much as I hate it. They used to call me the Spurgeon of Arkansas. I don't know if my preaching got mad or got bad, or my influence just got better, but I'm well known among Baptist preachers in Arkansas, eastern Oklahoma. I've been here. I don't want to be well known. I don't want to be any more famous than I already am. But you know what I would like to do? I would like to find other preachers and other church folk that like us, that are like us. Just like Dale Watson travels to Europe and finds out that there's people in Europe that love Dale Watson's music, and they show up to hear him play every time. I would like to go around the country, not promoting Harold Smith, but go around the country sitting down with preachers in the backwoods of America. And I would like to sit down with these men like David Marshall and Tom Kennedy and Richard Moon, names many of you probably don't even know. I'd like to sit down with a Justin White, and I would like to sit down with a Robbie McClellan or a John Shearhart or a Terry Basham. I'd like to sit down with some of these men and just let them talk and just kind of steer the conversation. Not scripted, but just get them telling the stories that they tell when we're together. Get their opinion on ministry. Get their opinion on pastoring. Get their outlook on the situation. And I would like you all to hear it. And because of a honky-tonk singer named Dale Watson, I'm now able to sit down here and say, I'm going to plan a Backwoods Baptist American tour. We're going to take the podcast on the road. We're going to have a road show, and I'm going to spend the month of August. I'm announcing it now. It's latter part of June. I want you to know what the plans are. I want you to know what my idea is, and it's still in the idea phase. I mean, God could strike me and say, Harold, you're out of line. You failed to discern the signs. I've been against this all along. But I don't think he is, because I've been praying about it extensively. I've talked to a lot of pastors about it. Matter of fact, I've contacted a lot of the men in the cities I'm going to mention here in a minute and just said, hey, would you be willing if I came to you? I got to get some different equipment. I've got the basic good equipment. I got to get some different mic stands, some stuff that travels better. This is not good for setting up and taking down. I'm going to buy some equipment in the month of July, and I'm going to set up a route. I'm going to set up tour dates, just like we were on the road. If you were looking at a concert t-shirt and it said Birmingham, Alabama, Miami, Florida, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, all those like cities, yeah, there won't be no big cities like that in ours. But I want to publish those dates. And I want you to know that I'm going to be in that area. I want it to be structured. I've got to schedule it. It's subject to change. But my motivation here is not to take Harold Smith around the country and say, hey, I'm Harold Smith, I'm here. There's 4 things I want to accomplish. Number 1, I want to see all my friends. I have friends that I only get to talk to on the phone. I have friends that I haven't seen their face in a long time, a couple of years or more. I've got friends that I don't ever run across, that we're just too far apart. But when I talk to them on the phone, it's so encouraging. When a deacon from another church sends me a text message that his cow has had a calf, I'm like, man, I want to go see the calf. I want to go see my friends, because in this unique ministry that I have of revitalizing churches and traveling the country and preaching, God has just dotted the American landscape with people that I love. and I don't see them enough. And I want to go see them, and I want to have fellowship with them. And I want to, I want to sit down with them and visit and spend some time. I mean, I'm going to show up and hook all this equipment up and record it, but I want to have lunch with them or breakfast with them or dinner with them, or I stay at their house. I don't know. I want to spend some time with the people I love and have real one-on-one fellowship. It's like, Paul, I long to see you. Writing letters back and forth, fine, but I really want to be face-to-face. That's my number one motivation. I want to take the podcast to people. Why? Because I want my friends to be introduced to the rest of my friends. A lot of my ministry to pastors was birthed out of the idea of people would say, Harold, you're the only friend I got. You're the only person I can confide in. You're the only one I can tell. And I would say, well, brother, man, I've got a lot of friends. You should come see the rest of my friends. And I started having conferences and started having coffee groups and breakfast and lunch gatherings just so my friends could get together and they could have more than one friend, more than me. I mean, I try to be a friendly guy, but you can probably find better friends than me. And that was my motivation. That was what drove me into helping pastors, and what people now say I'm accused of pastoring pastors. And I don't know if that's true or not. I want my friends to be heard. These are faithful pastors. These are deacons. These are guys that aren't even ordained. I have someone that's just been a faithful supporter of my ministry and a great encouragement to me. And he sends money in every month to support the work that I do. I want you to hear his story because he encourages me. And when we talk, and he's been to my home and I've been in his home a number of times, and I just kind of look for excuses to go to his part of the country so I can see him. I want these people to have a voice. I want, number two, I just want you to meet the people that I know. Number three, I want you to meet my friends. I want my friends. I want you to meet. I want to see my friends. I want you to meet my friends. And I want to make some new friends. There are people that will email me through the podcast and say, hey, if you're ever in Michigan, let me know. If you ever pass through Kentucky, let me know. If you're ever in Alabama, sometimes they'll say, one guy said, the next book on your want list, let me know, I'm buying it. Well, I never remember to say, hey, I want a book. I just feel weird. Even though they offer, I feel weird asking. Sometimes people would send me messages and say, we'd love to have you come to our church and preach, but we can't afford to have you come. It's just too far. I'm like, brother, I travel across the country and preach for nothing, $0. I'm not in this for the money. I remember one time going and helping a church. It was a long ways off. I think it was about a 14 or 16 hour drive one way. And I drove out, spent the weekend with them. I preached on Sunday, and they said, what do we owe you? I said, what do you normally give a guy that preaches on Sunday? They were without a pastor, so I knew they were paying supply preachers, and they said, well, we usually give him $150, but what do we owe you? I said, $150. And they were like, you drove 14 hours. I did that because I wanted to. And guess what? I made new friends on that trip. If you ever wanted me to come preach, you've ever thought, hey, I'd like to have Harold here, on a Wednesday night, but we're just too far away. If you've ever, maybe you're not a preacher, and if you're not the pastor, don't you dare go to your pastor and say, hey, I got a guy, I think you ought to come preach. Don't do it. But if you're the pastor and you think that, then call me. But the pastor's responsibility is the pulpit, and you have no say over it if you're not the pastor. So rattle that idea out of your head. If you've ever said, hey, if you're ever going through Alabama, let me know. Well, I'm probably going through Alabama. I'm probably going crisscrossing all across the central part of the United States. But even if I'm not, even if you're a little out of my range, maybe I can work it in where I have a day and I'm able. I can't make promises, but I want to make new friends. The Backwoods are full of my kind of people. I just have to find them. And the best way to find them is just to tell them where I am and say, hey, look, We know each other kind of through a podcast. If you'd like to get together, let me know. I want to see my friends. I want you to meet my friends. I want to make new friends. And I want the Backwoods Baptist across America to have a voice. If you, maybe we don't do a podcast, but if we could sit down and talk for 30 minutes, if I could get off the interstate and drive out to wherever you're at, sit down with you and give you 30, 45 minutes, maybe an hour of my time, I don't know. And you could say, Brother Harold, I would really like for you to, speak on this, or what is your opinion, or here's something I've been praying about. I want you to have a voice. I want these friends that I know to have a voice. I want the world to hear what I hear when I'm out in the backwoods that nobody else hears. Now, look, on this podcast, we're going to reach 300 to 500 people probably, unless God gets a hold of it, unless people start sharing episodes, unless something happens. And even if it don't, I'm okay. Like I said, number one goal, I want to go see my friends. I'm going to do that. I want you to meet my friends, and you're the ones listening. We can do that. I don't care how big this thing gets. I'm not looking to make it big. I'm just looking to give these guys a voice. And if you're out there and you'd like to meet up face-to-face somewhere at a Waffle House and have a cup of coffee, just let me know. We can make this thing happen. So where am I going to be? Right now, I'm going to record a podcast in 24 cities across 13 different states. 24 cities, 13 states. I'm going to give you a rundown of those. If this is close to you, or if this is in between, if you're in between this city and western Arkansas, there's a good chance we might be able to shake hands. I don't know how much time I could spend with you, but there's a good chance we might be able to shake hands. I got a list up here. I'm going to read them. Waycross, Georgia. Zarconia, North Carolina. Elk City, Oklahoma. Chestnut Grove, Virginia. Jefferson, Georgia. Mark Tree, Arkansas. Nahunta, Georgia. South Haven, Mississippi. Lawrenceburg, Tennessee. Sheboygan, Michigan. Arden, North Carolina. Arlington, South Dakota. Joplin, Missouri. Pryor, Oklahoma. Jonesboro, Arkansas. Blackshear, Georgia. Texarkana, Texas. Saluda, North Carolina. McGee, Arkansas. Fort Atkins, Wisconsin. Winterville, Georgia. Cunningham, Kentucky. Boyne City, Michigan, and Nashville, Arkansas. These recorded podcasts that I hope to make in these 24 cities, and all of this, is subject to change. These podcasts, if I record 24 of them from 24, people that I know in 24 cities, I just plan on dropping one a week from now until I run out of podcasts. I'll start in August when I start recording them. I'll start editing them, setting them up, one a week, and we'll drop them till we run out or until the Lord says, hey, maybe it's time to go on tour again. That's my plan. Now, I've contacted most of the men that I know in these cities, and I've confirmed that they're willing to at least sit down with me and record a podcast. Most of the people that I have on this list, most of the names that are up there, they listen to the podcast. Like I said, they're preachers, deacons, church members, ministry supporters, people that I know. I'm not going to record podcasts with people I don't know. I'm not going to meet you for the first time and interview you on the podcast and promise to put that out. I just think that'd be foolish. That'll be like letting a guy that you don't even know to, walk up in your pulpit. I've done that a time or two on the recommendation of somebody else. And, yeah, never felt comfortable with it, and about 50-50 on how that turned out. So if you don't know me, but you listen to the podcast, we might be able to get together. The details are subject to change. I hope to have a list of dates and places by mid-July. That's my goal. That way you will know where I am. You will know where I'm going through. So what I want you to do, I'm not looking for opportunities to preach. I know they're going to come up. I know people are going to say, well, Brother Harold, if you're coming all the way to whatever, we'd like for you to stay and preach. And I would be honored to. and it may work out that I can. But most of the time, churches meet on Sundays and Wednesdays. And I think there's only 4 or 5 Sundays in August and 4 or 5 Wednesdays in August. I'm preaching the last Sunday in Texarkana, or in Nashville, Arkansas, and the last Saturday in Texarkana. So I'm already booked to preach in 2 locations at that time. So this is not Harold trying to go out and worm his way into someone's pulpit. I just want you to know where I am, and that I'll be going here to record a podcast and maybe going here to preach. If you live in town and I'm preaching on a Sunday night and y'all don't have Sunday night service, you may want to come hear me preach Sunday night. I don't want to pull you out of your church. Maybe your church don't have a Wednesday night service and I'm an hour away. Maybe you want to come shake my hand, hear the hillbilly ramble. I don't know. I just want it to be available. That's my goal. I want to shake your hand if you listen to this podcast. If I have any of these books left, I was able to purchase 90 of each of the little booklets I wrote. I hate to keep calling them books. These things are pamphlets. I mean, I've seen a tour guide of Yellowstone thicker than this. But it's my work. It's the stuff that I've put in print. If I've got any of these left, I'll be glad to give you one if I can. It just depends on how many I'll have left over between now and August. But I'm not looking to go out and book a preaching tour. I'm looking to do a podcast tour. If I end up preaching, that's okay. If I'm in your neck of the woods and it's on Sunday and you want me to preach, I'll be glad to do it if I'm not already obligated. I can't promise you, if you say, Harold, I'd like to meet you. I live in Mississippi. I can't promise you I'll have the time to meet with you. But I can promise you this, if you'll send me an email and tell me what city you live in, as I crisscross the country, I'll make an honest effort to try to sit down and have a cup of coffee with you, spend a little time with you. I can't spend half a day. I don't know. Maybe I can. There's so many moving parts here. I've got preachers that are at Vacation Bible School this week and church camp the next week, and their only week to meet is here, and I can't backtrack back and forth across the country. I'm trying to burn as little gas as possible and try to be as efficient as I can in where I go and when I go, and I'm trying to work in a loop where I'm making things as productive and efficient as possible. I can't promise that if you send me an email, I'll be there, but I can promise you this. I'm going to start a database of people that say, hey, I'd like to meet you sometime. And I'm going to start putting pins on a map. And if I'm in that area, I'm going to reach out to that person and say, hey, man, I'm coming that way. If you hadn't got mad at a podcast episode yet and we're still online friends, you want to meet at the Waffle House or the Cracker Barrel or the best barbecue joint in your county. If you want to take me out to eat somewhere, take me to the best barbecue joint in your county. That's where I want to eat. I love barbecue, and that's what I would like to do. How do you get in touch with me if you're interested? Email me at harold@backwoodsbaptist.com. harold@backwoodsbaptist.com. If you can't remember harold@backwoodsbaptist.com, just go to the backwoodsbaptist.com website, and somewhere on there is probably a contact us page or something like that. If there's not, you can go to the bottom of the gospel page where we share the gospel in the lost and found section. I know my email is listed there, so if you're driving, you're listening to the Backwoods Baptist podcast, go to the backwoodsbaptist.com. Shoot me an email. Tell me who you are. Give me your name. Tell me where you live. Tell me you've been listening. Tell me you'd like to visit or buy my lunch or whatever. I'll buy your lunch. Whatever it is you have in mind doing, and I'll see how much time I got, and we'll try to make it happen. I don't know if anybody else done a podcast nationwide tour where they met and recorded podcasts, sometimes preached in different locations, and then stopped and met subscribers along the side of the road. So here's what I'm going to ask of you. I have 24 cities lined up. These are all men that I know and I'm comfortable with, and I want you to know. These are guys that I think have wisdom the world needs to hear about from out of the way places. The biggest town we have is Texarkana. I think that's the biggest town listed on there. Maybe Waycross, Georgia. I don't know. But the funny thing is, in Waycross, the pastor and the church are outside of the town, and Texarkana, I was scheduled to preach there a long time ago. It's a joint meeting of there'll probably be 8 or 9 churches there, maybe. But yeah, that's on a Saturday. I mean, that's a prime example. If you live in East Texas, Northeast Texas, on a Saturday, you could come and fellowship, not just with me, but you could meet, at least a half a dozen other pastors and churches, and I think they'll have a meal and a question and answer. And I mean, it'd be a great day of fellowship. You wouldn't just be coming to hear a hillbilly out of the hills of Arkansas. You could really find yourself in the fellowship of some really good churches. Pastor Bruce Short down at Nashville, Arkansas, heads that group up, and it is a blessing. It is a real blessing. And I've preached in those meetings a few times, and I've loved every one of them. Loved every one of them. So what I'd ask you to do is pray for wisdom. I don't know how to plan this. I wish I could call somebody and say, hey, that podcast nationwide tour you did where you stopped and met all these people you never met and opened yourself up to be mugged or kidnapped. How'd you go about planning that again? I don't know anybody that's done it. So I don't know if I got good. I know guys have podcasts that go places, but they usually don't announce the dates. They usually just drop it and say, hey, I just finished recording. I'm telling you where I'm going in advance. I'm opening myself up. I've got a lot of connections to make. I got a lot of pastor schedules to fit together. I got a lot of strange places, like I said, from Michigan, northern Michigan. Sheboygan's right up there by the Mackinac Bridge. I've got from Sheboygan, Michigan to Nahunta, Georgia. Nahunta's about an hour and 15 minutes from the coast. That's a pretty good spread. And then I'm going to go from central Virginia to nearly the panhandle of Oklahoma at Elk City. That's a pretty good spread. I can't go back and forth. So pray that God would give me wisdom and clarity for a travel plan. And pray that I could meet as many of y'all as possible, either in the churches or in places where I might be passing through. Just pray that all that works out. But do it under this banner. Pray that the Lord would use the month of August and my ministry to build up Christians, churches, pastors, all across the backwoods of America. Pray that God would use this fellowship with the men that I rarely get to see. Pray that God would use that fellowship to be an encouragement to that pastor, to encourage him to stay committed in his church. Pray for these preachers and these men that'll be sharing just unscripted. They have no idea. I don't know what we're going to talk about. Pray that God would use these godly conversations of people that love each other and that love the Lord. Pray that God would use them to build up people that can't be there, to encourage preachers that don't have fellowship like I enjoy, to build up churches that don't have congregations that support and love one another. So, man, Christians can be isolated at times as much as they don't want to be. It happens at times. I want to spend August crisscrossing the backwoods of the country I know and love, ministering with the people that I know and love, and encouraging the people that I may never get to know, but love. That's the great thing about heaven. I'm going to get to see all the people I love, but I've never met. I've been reading a wonderful biography called In Light of Eternity. It's the life of Leonard Ravenhill. Never seen Leonard Ravenhill, but I firmly believe I'll see him one day. And I'll probably see Tozier. I'll probably see Spurgeon. I'm not going to heaven to meet these men. I'm going to heaven to meet Christ. But if I'm on the earth with guys I love, I'm going to take this show on the road. Join us somewhere in the backwoods as we begin in August, Backwoods Baptist American Tour. Send me your email. I'll make every effort. Stop by and say hello.